Another draft physics video production. Yep. Alright. Crappy, stinking, lousy, rotten comments. Anyway, it was recently reported that Voyager 1 and 2, so this is the Tea Party guy, so, I've sort of given him lots of warnings. Just can't stay on the subjects. Have crossed into interstellar space. Yes, I already commented on this piece of garbage as a news story. It's just clickbait. Do you understand the concept? They have to hype everything. NASA has to get into the news somewhere because it wastes a preposterous amount of money and produces nothing of interest. So they have to make the crap, even their old crap, seem interesting. Whatever. I mean, and you just fall for it. You obviously don't even read these articles that you think are important. Because if you read them, you'd find out there's nothing in them. Not only did they find a firewall, there's no firewall. There's nothing interesting at all. Nothing surprising, nothing undeducible as a truth before reaching the end of the heliosphere, but the magnetism radiation increased by 5. There's no conversation about any magnetism increasing, so that's horseshit. You threw that word in there. Once we pass through it, I would really like to know your theory on what all that's about. Why? Do you really think you have any conception of anything? You just keep trying to make it special, and there's something magical happening. We've perforated God's colon. One of our satellites is perforating God's colon right now. We're shooting into his organs. You're on some fantastic voyage, right? That's all. Fantastic voyage. Let's go build a little spaceship to go floating through God's veins. I mean, you're just so fucking idiotic. So anyway. So what this is about is the fact that the universe is out there, empty space. It's called a vacuum, and you can have a really, really, really strong vacuum where there's almost nothing. There's an atom over here and one atom over here, and we have a number for it, and we'll call it a 20 vacuum or some other kind of bullshit when they're far enough apart that nothing enters the space very often. Nothing happens. So they're talking about the difference between nothing and nearly nothing, okay? They're not talking about, they increased the population by 7 billion. No, see, when you double, like if I reduce the human population to 1 person, right, then I could double it and it'd be 2. Oh, big frickin' deal. I could quadruple it, it'd be like 6. So fucking what compared to 7 billion? All right, doesn't mean anything. It's mush. So, yeah, there's a difference when you start, and look, let's understand, these satellites are just exiting the plane of the universe, right? The universe, most of this stuff is within 3 degrees of each other. I think the number is actually 3 or 5. It's a very small, tiny little, the pancake is really a pancake, okay? It's pretty small pancakey, all right? And so they've left the pancake. All right, they haven't gone all the way across the solar system to, the end of the solar system and flew out that way. They flew out before they got to the end, But regardless, and they flew out at 2 different points. The sun's here, one of them flew out here, and one of them's flying out more towards the end. And so all they've done is leave the plane of the pancake, this stuff spinning around, where obviously there's more noise because there's stuff bouncing off of other stuff, there's reflections, there's a lot of stored energy that's still in there. Some heat is still caught up in the pancake, and you leave the pancake, there's less of that kind of heat, and there's more of the other kind, the kind that hasn't been hit by anything yet. So in the part where there's still planets spinning around, the cosmic rays are hitting atmospheres, and they're hitting plasmas from the sun, they're hitting the sun's corona, they're hitting lots of stuff. And so they're making particles that are moving a little bit slower, and that might be bigger. But, when you leave that, then all you're getting is the real cosmic rays, the ones that haven't hit anything yet. The ones that have come billions of miles without hitting anything, light years. That's all. Tiny difference in the amount of radiation, total radiation, And all the real difference is now the particles they're 50-year-old instruments, or almost, are receiving are just understand, it's stuff built in the 70s, fuckhead. It's not exactly high tech. It's no smartphone on the frickin' satellites. Um, just, so it's a tiny difference, and it's only significant in the sense that it's perfectly predictable, in the sense that yes, it's radiation that hasn't caused any chain reaction, so it hasn't created any, there's no beta particles, it's no alpha particle, no beta, and just gamma radiation, and yeah, beta, right? Yeah, beta is the big stuff, right? Well, anyway, the helium nuclei. Um, but there's just nothing remarkable here. So if you read the story, you'd read it and you'd say, wow, that's totally unremarkable. You people are just such pieces of shit. Yeah, you're just so desperate, clinging to these little silly stories on tiny bits of data like it somehow means something. What do you actually think? Do you think the solar system is some magical bubble, and they've traversed some magical thing and some magical event happened? Do you really think that? Ugh. While you're asking about that, could you also inquire about this? I'm not looking for woo. Yeah, you are, obviously. I mean, the link is to a Daily Mail. I mean, it's covered with clickbait. It's made for morons. It's not exactly. It's not even a peer-reviewed fucking article. I'm just curious. Supermassive black hole spawning stars at a furious rate. Well, this one isn't as bad as the other one. Daily Mail isn't as bad. The other link's even worse. Anyway, so so look at the title alone: supermassive black hole spawning stars at furious rate, right? And what's the story about? It's actually about a galaxy that has a smaller black hole in it. And so there's the whole theory of the story is that a smaller black hole means there's more activity in the gas. The gas doesn't get sucked up by the black hole, and so there's more time for the gas to consolidate into stars. So the whole theory is based on a small black hole, not a supermassive black hole, in the sense that it's all about the supermassive black hole being less supermassive. So isn't that just a preposterous irony that they titled the video with supermassive black hole, and the story is really about the supermassive black hole not being so big, not being so massive? And what do you think all this crap is just made out of? It's made out of people's imagination. It's not hard evidence, not a big volume of evidence. These are experiments. This isn't like a pendulum swinging where you can watch the experiment. This is some asshole looks at a blurry picture and tells you, what he sees. Butterfly. And then he tries to come up with some butterfly theory for the universe. And some asshole sticks a microphone in front of him and says, well, what's about this butterfly effect? I mean, this is bullshit as science. This is so out of their ass. You want to waste your time on it? Go ahead and waste your time on it, okay? They haven't even proven the existence, theoretically, of anything called a black hole in their sense of grapefruits that have 1 million solar masses. The fact that there are heavy objects in the universe, fine. Okay, that they can demonstrate. That they can demonstrate that those heavy objects are anything other than an object not on fire. Well, it's hardly a miraculous theory to say, well, there could be really big objects like Saturn. Well, the other one's bigger, whatever it's called. The one before Saturn. Anyway, that could just be in space, be big heavy things. They haven't made any proof. And yet they're going to talk about how it feels, what it did yesterday, when they haven't proven its fucking existence. Ugh, this is just such junk. It has nothing to do with this channel. It's not really my job to debunk every fucking idiotic claim by idiotic science. I mean, it really isn't. So fuck this shit, yes. a waste of my time. Just pointing out, Robert Ritchie's comment is still here. Makes the accusation I deleted his moronic comment, but I didn't. It's a Maxim. Hi, Maxim. Always amazes me these people consider everything a secret, the hidden secret of magnetism. The powerful secrets of the golden mean. Well, obviously the evidence is thin, so people can do their stupid Sasquatch thing. They can play these stupid UFO games with their little cigar pictures and shit. Because, yeah, the evidence leaves some ambiguity and a fog. And only serious people can, should be allowed to play in fog, because only serious people will know that they can't fall for every little shadow that moves. The lost secrets of the Greeks and the origins of gravity. Yes, the pyramids were made by aliens. On and on and on. Either something is part of our common knowledge base, or it's not. Well, I don't know if that statement is very useful. Because what we think we have common knowledge of, our knowledge isn't exactly accurate, right? I mean, it's all fables. I mean, the real Faraday versus the storytelling, all of that kind of crap exists. The fact is that the people don't tell the stories honestly. Einstein, the hero who abandoned his kids, and all kinds of, nice little guy, blah blah blah. No, not so fucking nice. There are no secrets except among school children playing post office. Well, whatever. Clearly, there are mysteries to be solved. There's problems. Okay, there's the very fact that there isn't some pile of conclusive evidence is a fact. And so this trial has to be conducted carefully because the evidence leaves some ambiguity. And I guess I would argue that if you have a disciplined approach and you go through it piece by piece and you do it carefully, you can prove the case. Okay? But it's going to take people with some kind of brains and discipline to do it right. And it's really easy to do it wrong. It's really easy to jump to wrong conclusions because of that ambiguity. But again, some of the ambiguity shouldn't even exist because some of the experiments are so overt in your face. You could argue that the truth of the ambiguity of the slit experiments is evidence of wave behavior, for example. All the hype about, it couldn't be anything else. Of course, it could be lots of other things. And then all the hype saying, it's such perfect, it fits perfectly, when no, if you analyze the single slit and the multi-slit, it doesn't fit perfectly anymore. And it doesn't even fit perfectly in the double slit because they just keep pretending it's not two patterns superimposed on each other or blended into each other. Let's put it that way. And there's no wave theory for that. So, I mean, this is, I wish I could just say, they're just so profoundly retarded. But no, this has more to do with the fact that people are gullible, and you can fool some of the people all the time, and all the people, almost all the time. This is just a human frailty, and the frailty of this information, and the fact that there are liars in the world who wish to take advantage of that fog to steal people's money and to just play silly games. I want to lead them into the mud, and they'll go do it. They'll build a lead them into the mud boat, of propaganda and bullshit. So I'm just saying, I think it's a little more complicated than, but whatever. Okay, Robert Ritchie. I made 4 assertions. Well, really you didn't, okay? They're not even 4 assertions. All right, first, an electron is more than an elementary particle. Well, you're basically saying an electron is not an elementary particle, right? Isn't that all that's saying? And then you say an electron has a complex inner structure. Well, that's saying the same damn fucking thing, isn't it? It's not elementary because it has a complex inner structure. So that's only one claim, jackass. Jeez. So the other 2, that's 3 claims. I forgot what the other 2 were. Anyway, and I addressed them, shithead. You're just amazing douchebag. You can make videos. Why don't you make a video explaining your theory of reality? Because I don't have time for this little dribbles of it at a time bullshit. Okay, make your claims, provide your evidence, and leave it at that. That's all I can do, shithead. That's what I'm doing with this channel, shithead, and you're just a stupid distraction from my mission here. Okay, because you're saying I need to debunk your bullshit. No, I don't, really. Yeah, not my obligation. You either defend conventional physics or you attack my physics. But this is a waste of my fucking time playing this game that you have some notion of reality that I have to consider. You have some special facts. Well, what's your special facts? Get it done, present them, and shut the fuck up. However, you saw fit to dismiss my argument. You didn't make an argument. That was the very argument I made, is pointing out how you have no fucking argument. Show me the fucking evidence. Show me where Faraday says so. Show me where Maxwell's math indicates so. Show me where something indicates that electrons are dipoles. Show me the facts, the evidence that demonstrates that's a possibility. Oh, fuck. Let's see, fit to dismiss my argument and delete my comment. I didn't delete your fucking comment, you fucking idiot. I should have, because it's off the fucking subject, but I didn't. And what good would it do to preserve it? What, are you going to add to your comment? Are you going to say something to make your comment relevant somehow? What are you going to do with that comment on another video? You're going to add more to it? You're going to make more comments on that comment? What are you going to do exactly with that fucking idiotic comment that doesn't say anything, doesn't demonstrate anything, doesn't logically create a chain of reasoning where somebody could understand why the fuck you believe what you believe? If you're going to state you believe in Sasquatch, then provide the fucking evidence. You should have left the comment there so we could have had a serious discussion. How serious is it? I keep asking for evidence, you provide none. A citation, something, a link to something. You can't write anything, you can't make a video, you can't do anything to back up your claims except write half paragraphs on my comment section? Well, fuck you. On each point. Well, there's no points. The points are redundant. You say the electron is something more than momentum. I'm saying it's nothing more than a blob that moves. And the blob has a charge profile in the sense of I've explained the two forces and the two kinds and the fact that they interact inversely. Those are it for the properties. No other properties that could fucking goddamn matter. No others that have any fucking effect on any fucking thing. There's absolutely no evidence of any other magical property or magical abilities. Serious discussion on each point. Right, the redundant points. I guess you don't want to have the discussion. So again, somehow I have done anything but beg you for your fucking evidence. Have I done anything other than just beg you for fucking evidence? No, I haven't done anything other than that. And yet you're saying I'm evading a discussion? No, I'm evading discussions with assholes who can't present any fucking evidence. Oh man, you're such a douche. Okay, I want to have a discussion supported by electrical laws. What the fuck would be an electrical law? Oh, you mean their theory that it's a wave? That's not a fucking law, idiot. Heisenberg, you think that's a fucking law? What the fuck are you talking about? Electrical laws. What? Oh, you're so fucking stupid. Alright, back. Alright, so let's do this last sentence again. I guess you don't want to have a discussion supported by electrical laws. So again, what you're going to argue like Lenz's law? The argument is these are all phenomenon. And you can explain them, in multiple ways. And still be within some reasonable realm. You don't have to accept what they say it is, okay? So if they say it's an eddy current going like this, you could argue that, no, the eddy current is going this way and this way. There's lots of arguments to be made why the phenomenon exists. Lots of them. And that's my whole point, right? So I'm arguing there's no wave phenomenon. There's only this fact that you can hit electrons near the surface of objects, and that surfaces cause diffraction. And it's no more complicated than that. You don't need any wave theory. You don't need any Heisenberg nonsense. You don't need any of that bullshit to explain the phenomenon. So the whole point of these arguments I've made in these drawings is for you to point out where I have diagramming the phenomenon. That's something I've said. It doesn't diagram the phenomenon. So I went through this whole thing about the paramagnetic effect and the fact that it's the motion of the magnet. The magnet's essentially changing the texture of the material. And when you push on the electrons, you don't even have to move them. You don't have to exchange them. You don't have to create ions. All you have to do is change their position relative to the proton, and you've turned something that was not was electrically neutral into something that's not electrically neutral. Okay, that's an imbalanced atom now, and essentially a dipole that you can see. That dipoles are made that way, that they go through this period where they're at balance, and so just as I put the electron and the proton at the right distance from each other, and you from the right distance, and you won't see any polarity. But if I push the electron a little further from the proton, then you'll see a polarity, and if I push it a little closer, you'll see a polarity. So I fit the evidence, and that's my obligation, jackass. Nothing else. I don't have to accept any of your notions of what they say it is. All right, thousands of experiments. I'm asking you to cite any of the experiments that my theory is inconsistent with. That's the whole fucking point. I've said it overtly. I don't know what else I can say to you. So if you're not going to cite an experiment that I haven't properly explained, then fuck you. Because that's my only obligation, is to explain the experimental facts. Not their explanations, not their interpretation of what the experiment says, but what actually factually happens in the experiment. You say it's a fact, okay, that a photon breaks into two photons, two waveatons, and goes through the two slits. You say that's a fact. I'm saying there's absolutely zero evidence that any of that shit happens. The only thing there's evidence of happens is that the course of the photon changes, that it goes from going this way to some angular, specific change in its direction. And that's all there's evidence of, shithead. Alright. And verifiable facts. So again, what are your verifiable facts? You should tell me what your verified facts are. Give me a list of them. So you're saying this crap are facts. You have a fact that, electrons aren't elementary, that somebody broke an electron. You have a fact to support that with. That has a complex inner structure. It doesn't have a simple inner structure. No, it's somehow complex. Complex how? An electron is a magnetic dipole when in motion. Well, why don't you prove that with some kind of evidence? Again, this whole fucking motion crap doesn't make any fucking sense. The only time we're watching the motion of electrons is when the electrons are moving relative to protons. That is, when they're moving in atoms. Well, that's not exactly a sterile environment for your experiment, is it? So you're going to tell me what electrons are based on what protons do? Essentially, what the proton does when the electron leaves? What happens to the atom when you move the electron? That's not exactly a property of the electron then. That's a property of the atom, jackass. Electrons can be created, so this is just more you made that shit up, because there ain't no fucking experiment showing any of that. No good experiment. So what say you, Gary? Yeah, well, I've already said it. And I'm wasting time. I'm wasting more time on crap. So put up or shut up. Show me some evidence for your crap or shut the fuck up. Alright, news article. Scientists may have discovered this comment I will delete. Because first you accused me of deleting your comment and I didn't fucking do that. Then you make this accusation that somehow I don't want to have a discussion. No, I want to have a discussion, one based on fucking evidence though. Not on your fucking imagination. Oh, Jesus. Alright. News article. Okay, so this is the one at the Independent. Yeah, so it's just the whole fucking article is in between hunks of clickbait. You know, slut mom has, turtle baby. All kinds of just garbage stories. Alright. Scientists may have discovered fifth force of nature, laboratory announces. Wow, isn't that just too fantastic? A laboratory announced it. How interesting. Not. And then you read the article. It's about some minute amount of energy in a nuclear process. It's hardly a fundamental force. Hardly something that would be integral to the function of all atoms and all this other stuff. Little specific radioactive isotope produces a little bit of a funky little result, and we've found another force of nature. I mean, it's just such bullshit. I mean, the strong and weak force are already in jeopardy, in a sense they really can't tie either one of those down. So there's really not four of them anyway. There's really just gravity and charge. It shouldn't say magnetism or electricity. No, there's gravity and there's charge. And then if you put two charges together, you get a dipole. That's magnetism. But that's all there is. The rest of it's just bullshit. So play in your shit. I don't care. You can waste your time. But yes, garbage. So this is just junk science. So I'm just getting rid of it because it first hasn't been peer reviewed. And second, even if it's true, what they're saying it means is just preposterous. It means absolutely nothing. It's not even close to a fifth force of nature. Like I said, the two nuclear forces are already mushy as fuck. So anyway, I mean, the fact that you people can't understand that this stuff is all moving the same speed and it does the same thing, which is transfers momentum, that it makes things move. Gravity makes things move. Magnets make things move. Charge makes things move. You can't figure out it's just one fucking force. It's the same fucking thing. Alright? Just in a slightly different form. And that's why it moves differently. Monopole, can make one thing happen, and then you put the dipole, the two monopoles next to each other, and you get a dipole, and it acts differently. You can't get that it's all the same thing. It's just that your boats are different. It's the same ocean, different boats. I mean, how many analogies to it can I make? Let's see. I mean, you can really understand it that way, right? I mean, certain boats are really good in certain kinds of environments, and then other boats suck in that environment, split in half, and blah, blah, blah. I mean, it's you just don't say, oh, they're all different kinds of waves. No, it's the same waves, different boats. Fuckheads. All right. So, yeah, that's it for the comments. All right, so maybe I'll be back with more. See if I can somehow find the energy to even bother, even to waste any more time on conversation with people. It's just a very disagreeable chore to attempt it. Ugh. Alright, well, I decided to finish up by doing a little Richard Feynman. So that's what we'll do. Just kind of an overview of the difficulty of nailing reality down, kind of thing.
Suppose that little things behaved very differently than anything that was big.
Right. So yes, just this idea that the little universe, although it's the parts that make the big universe, that it's fundamentally, there's no Rube Goldberg that is like the toaster that makes Rube Goldbergs. There's no complex thing that is imitating the exact function of the things that are making the more complex thing. So obviously our physical interactions with each other and moving through our lives and stuff has very little connection to what the cells are doing, and very little connection to what the atoms are doing, and very little connection to the nuclear bits. And it's our function to see patterns, to recognize patterns. That's what the brain's primary objective is. That's why we have a brain, is because it can do this thing of saying, I remember that, and I can recognize that, and and even in the cruder organisms, they have it built in from birth, what flowers to go to, what thing to, it's built in, the recognition. And they use their senses to see the thing that they're after, so to speak. the thing that matches the pattern. Yeah, you're going to go on with more words to say that's what we're doing, but that's pretty much all the thing does, is recognize a pattern and then produce a response to the pattern, a reflex.
Anything that you're familiar with, because you see, as the animal evolves and so on, as its brain evolves, it gets used to handling. The brain is designed for ordinary circumstances.
So again, it's ordinary circumstances just means that our pattern recognition is sort of focused. It's oriented to the world we're likely to be in, and so it doesn't have any pre-existing mechanisms that would be in any other form than the shape of a woman or some other, those kinds of built-in patterns. And so all it can work with is the kind of things we're oriented to see, the kind of things we can detect with our senses. And so we tend to turn everything into, bowling balls and bowling pins or something.
But if the gut particles and the deep inner workings were by some other rules and some other character, they behave differently, they were very different.
So I don't think there's so much that they're different, it's just that they're much simpler. Everything we deal with is made out of, atoms and stuff like that, and so it's a bit removed from the simple mechanism. But I guess I would argue that it's not like it's unimaginable or unrelatable to what we know. It's just that it's you have to be able to understand any mistakes you make in viewing it. The elemental mechanism ends up being catastrophic in terms of there's so much dependent on that function being just right. And if that function isn't just right, if you have a Rube Goldberg with toasters that don't work, the whole Rube Goldberg fails. So the whole model fails if you fail to get one element of the model right. And so that's the part that's so demanding, is the ease with which some understanding can be dismissed because you didn't plug the toaster in. Something simple that can be fixed, and you assumed it couldn't.
Than anything on a large scale, then there would be some kind of difficulty in understanding and imagining reality. And that difficulty we are in.
Right. So, and that's from his perspective, in the sense that he's saying, I've thought about it and I can't figure it out, so it's got to remain a mystery, I just, like I said, I see that as just something stated by somebody who's failed, not somebody who's succeeded. So, and that's all it is. It's not that the egg can't be broken well, where you can have a nice straight break in the egg. Because everybody breaks crooked doesn't mean everybody's going to break crooked, or whatever, however the analogy goes. But clearly, if you try 6 times and it never works, and you just say, "That can't be done," it's that kind of thing. It's not that it's so elusive. It's not that it's so difficult. It's just that there's so many variations, and they all have to go through the process of somebody thinking of it and imagining it and running it and going through this process. And you could put 1,000,000 monkeys at the typewriter, and finally one of them will type the end. That's what they'll type. And you just kind of have to wait for that monkey.
The behavior of things on a small scale is so fantastic. It's so wonderfully...
Okay, so this is all the hyperbole, the bullshit just made out of their own wrong model, because they haven't got it right. They have it doing all kinds of wacky things to compensate for the wrong answer. So they have some wrong formula, and then they make another formula, or they make dark matter, dark energy, they make something to fix that, and that breaks something else, and then that breaks something else. And so they have a Rube Goldberg of broken machines. Well, the toaster doesn't toast, so let's put it on a teeter-totter and put a bouncing elephant on it with an umbrella, and and so they're just constantly creating the noise that makes it seem like it's way too complex, when no, it was really simple. You just need to plug the toaster in. You didn't need to build all of this other crap to duplicate what the toaster would have done.
Different, so marvelously different than anything that behaves on a large scale.
Right. So and that's just because he's made these assumptions that Heisenberg is rational and that Einstein is rational science, that it's somehow in the realm of a reasonable theory to speculate about some bent geodesic making things move, when you know that everything requires an interaction to move. There's no spooky actions, there's only interactions. Things have to interact, they can't act. Everything's just a byproduct. They can't really do this right, because they can't do that simple process of just understanding, well, if you follow the interactions and realize the interactions are dependent on reactions, then maybe you'd understand that the force isn't coming from the thing is reflecting the stuff that's hitting it. And if then they'd have a source for magnetism and a source for all this stuff, because they'd realize it just has to do with the magnets just giving you a different perception of view of the mirror. It's just a mirror, and the mirror can be on or off or half mirrored, and that will decide what you're going to see. How it's acting is really just how it's reacting.
You say electrons act like waves. No, they don't exactly.
See, this is the bullshit, where he's at least admitting, okay, that, well, he's not admitting that fundamentally we shouldn't settle for this. So he's sort of saying, okay, not exactly means, nah, that's not the answer. That's not the answer. That's not the answer. But what I would argue is clearly it's just because they haven't found the right answer, but it's one of those. Okay, it's either a particle or it's a wave. Frequencies either important. Momentum, you can't make them into the same thing. Momentum isn't frequency. If a frequency appears like more momentum, it's for a reason. It's not just because it is.
They act like particles. No, they don't exactly. They act like a kind of a fog around the nucleus. No, they don't exactly. And if you want,
right, so they know you have wrong answers. You've put a piece of the puzzle that just doesn't quite fit. It's close, but it doesn't match. The pattern isn't quite right, and the round piece isn't where it should be, and you really did have to hit it with a hammer to get it to fit. And so you should just know it's not the right answer. You don't know that there's not an answer.
I'd like to get a clear, sharp picture of an atom, so that you can tell exactly how it's going to behave correctly. I have a good image, in other words, a really good image of reality. I don't know how to do it, because that image...
So at least he's conceding, right, because you don't understand, okay, what the basic mechanisms are. And you're making that obvious by the fact that you do have a bent geodesic to explain motion in one case, and then you have a virtual photon in another case, and you know the two cases can't be mixed together. That you're doing something wrong, you're missing something, but you do know that they move the same speed, that they have the same effect, and that is they transfer action. One thing gives away the action, the other thing receives the action. That part's nailed. The motion is what is being transferred.
It has to be mathematical. We have a mathematical expression. Strange, it's mathematics. I don't understand how it is, but we can write mathematical expressions and calculate what the thing is going to do without actually being...
Yeah, so this is all based on averages, though. So again, these calculations are mostly based on what's an average, what does it do generally. It doesn't do it for any specific case. So it won't tell you what one single photon will do. It'll just tell you that if you put a group of photons in, 1,000,000 of them, you'll get a certain probability of a certain outcome. Well, so what? I mean, the experiment tells you that. That's the outcome. You already know that. Having a formula to tell you what you already know is meaningless. What you want to understand is why. Why does it do it? And that's where they've lost sight of the objective. The objective isn't to reinforce the The variables we already know. We already know the distance. We already know the velocity. We already know the frequency. We know that those variables change the outcome. If I change one of the variables, I change the outcome. We already know all that. It's not telling us anything.
Able to picture it. It would be something like a computer that you put certain numbers in and you have the formula for at what time the car will arrive at different destinations, and the thing does the arithmetic to figure out what time the car arrives at the different destinations, but cannot picture the car. It's just doing the arithmetic. So we know how to do the arithmetic, but we cannot picture the car. No, it's not 100% because for certain...
Yeah, but you obviously do to understand the relationships between things. You have to picture them. So you do make pictures. It's just that the pictures are sort of a deception. They're really not what the thing is in its substance. Again, like the Lorentz transformation is an image of the inverse square law, but it's kind of a lousy image. It's a lousy way to see it. So it's like seeing the road from underneath and cars going by or something. It's it's not going to give you a very good picture of what's actually happening.
Certain situations, a certain kind of approximate picture works. That is simply a fog around the nucleus that when you squeeze it, it repels you, is very good for understanding the stiffness of material.
So it's very good for understanding that there's a force in there. That's what should be telling you something. Telling you why is it spring back? It's not magic. There's got to be a reason. And the reason is just as simple, like I said, ping pong paddles. You can figure it out. Same ball bouncing back and forth. Not complicated. It's got to be something like that.
That it's a wave which does this and that is very good for some other phenomena. All right. So when you're working with certain particular...
So he's just making an excuse for this stupid duality crap that can't be the right answer. Because sometimes it works for modeling. And as I've pointed out, they model bent geodesics by using Mach gravity, ironically. So they use a mechanism like a fluid dynamic, where they're essentially moving in ether or some other kind of thing. So this thing that's supposed to be a replacement for the other theory is using the other theory as part of its core explanation.
Aspects of the behavior of atoms, for instance, when I was talking about temperature and so forth, that they're just little balls is good enough, and it gives a very nice picture of temperature. But if you ask more specific questions and you get down to questions like, how is it that when you cool helium down, even to absolute zero where there's not supposed to be any motion, it's a perfect fluid that hasn't any viscosity, has no resistance, flows perfectly, and isn't freezing?
Yeah, and so again, but that just all has to do with what your understanding is that the expression of heat is somehow something that comes from the outside, or it's some sort of energy that has to be released, when it could just be in the nature of electrons that they don't stand still. They're a boat that always has an odd rower. There's never there's never 6 guys going this way and 6 guys going that way.
Well, if you want to get a picture of atoms that has all of that in it, I can't do it.
Right, so that's exactly the point. Right, you can't do it, so let's assume it can't be done. And that's the part that's just so obnoxious. And especially in the context of this battle that's been, the Faraday was doing the same thing. Maxwell, they were posing over these facts that they have to make sense out of. The fact that the gravity and the charge and the magnetism all have these things in common that just can't be denied, and that somehow there has to be some universal mechanism that's making all these phenomenons, because they have too much in common for any rational person to say they're not connected. They're not part of the same toaster. The same dominoes is making the different patterns, and you just have to find the right description of the domino to match the 3 different phenomenons.
But I can explain why the helium behaves as it does by taking my equations and showing the consequences of them is that the helium will behave as it is observed to behave. So
right, but again, the equations were developed for the very purpose of matching the end result. So again, then the equations are just about variables again, and obviously the only thing that's going to be mattering is how much external temperature there is, and what's the density, and what's the volumes or, I mean, there's only going to be the pressure it's under. All those things are going to be just the variables, and obviously the variables are going to decide what condition the helium is in. How much foreign matter is in it, how pure is it. All those things are going to matter.
We know we have the theory right, but we haven't got the pictures.
You don't have the theory right. All you have is a list of variables. You don't have any theory of what the variables are actually doing. What does it mean for the slits to be a certain distance apart? Well, what does that actually mean? I mean, where is the transition between the surface of a substance and the other substance? Is that some sort of clean place where there's no atmosphere, so to speak? No difference between the, no difference. And so somebody would be being cruelly denying a huge reality of planet Earth if they were to ignore the 3 miles of atmosphere, right? The 3 important miles. So, you can't describe the Earth without that.
But we'll go with the theory. And is that because we're limited and haven't caught on to the right pictures?
Yes, you're just missing the concept, and then you're not knowing where the starting point is. And if you start with charge, the difference between electrons and protons, and then you realize that charge makes magnets, it makes dipoles, and then if I mix a bunch of dipoles, what I have is just a bunch of matter mixed, and then that's gravity. So the force mixed, diluted, okay, it's obviously gravity, the weakest force. I make magnets, I still have charge, so it's still strong. It's a lot stronger than gravity, but it's weaker than charge. So if I separate the charges, then I really maximize the interaction between an electron and a proton. I'll see the most repulsion and the most attraction when I have independent charges. And when I cram them together, I'll have something that's important and significant, magnetism, but it won't be as strong as the charges independently. And then gravity is just taking it all and mixing it all up.
Or is that because there aren't any right pictures for people who have to make pictures out of things that are familiar to them?
Right, so he's basically saying that we somehow can't find any way or mechanism. It's so abstract that we can't draw a picture of it. Now, I can't draw a picture of feeling bad, right? I can't draw a picture of feeling bad. There is a picture, though. I mean, there is a neurological pattern that takes place that you could probably find in all humans that are experiencing the feeling. It would be the same kind of pattern. So there is a picture of it. It's not going to look like anything. We're not going to recognize it. Oh, that's bad, because we haven't associated. We haven't made those associations obvious. We haven't made a picture of good and a good feeling, and a picture of the bad feeling is a neurological picture. So we don't have any way to recognize it. But the fact is as soon as we become familiar with it, as soon as you start looking at those pictures and start seeing the differences and understanding why they're different, like this one has 3 circles and this one only has 2 circles, I can see the difference. So now I can see the difference between good and bad. So it's just that simple. And the fact is we do have the building blocks of understanding, in the sense that we can draw a circle and call it a charge, and then we can draw little things and call them force. And we can draw a picture of it. You just haven't drawn the right picture.
Well, let's suppose it's the last one, that there's no right pictures in terms of things that are familiar to them. Is it possible, then, to develop a familiarity with those things that are not familiar on hand by study, by learning about the properties of atoms and quantum mechanics, by practicing with the...
Yes, it's all going to be that simple. I mean, the forces are simple. The actions are simple. So obviously there's no obvious reason why we can't do it. Now, if you believe in entanglement, you believe in spooky action, well, then you're never going to draw a picture of that, right? If you believe in ESP or some kind of magical changes taking place, things move for no reason, no cause to the effect. So if you believe there's some way to break cause and effect, well, then, yeah, you'll never draw a picture of it. Okay. But, yes, I don't think there's any evidence that that's the truth.
Equations, until it becomes a kind of second nature, just like it's second nature to know that if 2 balls came toward each other, they'd smash into bits.
Or else they'd bounce off of each other.
You don't say the 2 balls, when they come toward each other, turn blue, you know what they do. So the question is whether you could get to.
But yes, but you'd know that if they had another ball between them, if the two balls are coming between them and there's another ball caught between them that bounces, a little super ball, you would know that the closer they get, the more the super ball bounces, the more interactions it has with them, the more heat it would create, or the more whatever. So you know that you can just add another component and those two balls might turn red and blue.
Know what things do without better than we do today. You know, as the generations develop, will they invent ways of teaching and so that the new people
The ways of teaching. So again, yeah, the way of teaching is not to be dogmatic. And they've obviously gone in exactly the opposite direction. They've decided to become more and more just teach the dogma. You're a minister in that church. Just do the math. Don't try to conceptualize. Don't try to imagine. Shut all that off and pretend this is a mathematical problem when it's a conceptual problem. You have to come up with the right components, and then you can build the model. The math will do you no good if you don't know how to glue fenders to bumpers and to tie all this stuff together. You got to be a mechanic to make the car. You know, sitting there doing it all on your blueprints without any images, just having a bunch of numbers, okay, that the fender's 4.8 degrees to the left of the bump, you know, that's meaningless if you don't know how to make the thing out of pieces.
will learn tricky ways of looking at things and be so trained, so well trained, that they won't have our troubles.
The only way they're not going to have your troubles is not to take you too serious. And that's it, because your troubles are all based on garbage in. You've made the mistake of accepting bent space as an answer. It's a stupid answer. It's nonsense. The only thing you need to know is the inverse square law. What's causing it? Well, there's two choices. Either the thing is radiating the stuff from some magical source, or it's reflecting it from some source unknown. But those are your only two choices. You know the energy has to come from some place. Things don't move by magic. And a bent geodesic is just saying magic did it.
With the atom picturing. There's still a school of thought that cannot believe that the atomic behavior is so different than large-scale behavior.
Yeah, so at least he's conceding we exist. So there must be somebody else, some physicist who must have talked to him and said, "Oh, Richard, this is such bullshit. You are all tied up in such knots of crapola." And yeah, obviously the thing is simple. It gets simpler going down, okay? You can cut the DNA molecule into its amino acids. You can cut the amino acids into the atoms, and you can cut the atoms into electrons and protons. It gets simpler as it goes down. It doesn't get more complicated. The frickin' photons don't have ESP. They don't have radar. They don't have machine guns. They don't have torpedoes, missiles. They don't have any of that shit. They're simple, not complicated. They do simple things. They travel billions of light years in a straight, stupid line.
I think that's a deep prejudice. It's a prejudice from being so used to large-scale behavior. And
yeah, I think it's a deep prejudice on your part to just sit there and say there's got to be unicorns. And so now you can't find them in the real big universe. You can't find them in this universe anywhere. Now you just sit there all in this little magical special place. So you're the woo chaser.
Always seeking to waiting for the day that we discover that underneath the quantum mechanics, there's some mundane, ordinary balls hitting or particles.
Yeah, that's right. Two forces, two matter bits, two interactions. That's right. 2 + 2 + 2 physics. Insanely simple.
Particles moving and so on. I think they're going to be defeated.
Yes, they'll be defeated only because religion wins, right? We still haven't beaten Jesus stories and Mohammed stories and just complete horseshit stories and magic crystals. Yes, you're all woo chasers, period. You just couldn't give a shit about the truth. You're just chasing some glorification of your silly neuroses. You know, my neuroses is the special one. It loves the right things. It smells the right smells. It's, you know, I'm perfect. You know, and you're all a mess.
I think nature's imagination is so much greater.
Nature's imagination. See, I mean, this is where it just turns into such baby talk. I mean, just such baby talk. So every bit of evidence is the crude origin for life. The simpler, forms developed into more complex things. Every single example points to the fact that it gets simpler. It doesn't do magic. And that there is always a cause to an effect. Tires don't just blow up. Nothing just does anything. Nothing spontaneously without cause and effect happens. And you just want to inject a bunch of magical causes, even though it's so obvious that we're programmed. The programming is rigid. There's always something you can find to blame. There's always a cause. A mechanical, physics cause.
Greater than man's. She's never going to let us relax.
Yeah, well, you're never going to get to relax because you're always going to try to take advantage somewhere of everything to improve efficiency, so to speak. Well, any intelligent mind is going to keep trying to do that, but the idiocracy is going to keep breeding morons, and keep raising them as assholes, and so you're going to keep fighting the ocean of assholes, and that's the dilemma, is that all the knowledge in the world doesn't stop morons from not wearing condoms. All right, so enough of a commentary. But again, it's he said this in other lectures. This implication in the other lecture, he sort of said, well, maybe it could be a checkerboard. Maybe it could be incredibly simple. And it's just that it's so big, we're so distant from the real board. Okay, I mean, we can't even imagine it. I can imagine a checkerboard as big as the football stadium, or I can imagine as big as a big city. I can imagine as big as a state, maybe. Okay, California, just as a giant checkerboard, and with all those tiny little squares on it, and zillions of checkers, and I can only see it that big. There's the size of California. I mean, I can't zoom in on it. I can only see it when it's the size of California, so I can't see the little checkers, and I can't see all this. But the fact is, if I had a checkerboard like that, there's places where the checkers are going to be making all kinds of images just with that on-off thing, just by the red and black thing. Okay, that's all you need, X's and O's, and you can make pictures out of just X's and O's. And they'll look like pictures. It'll look like Richard Nixon or whatever the fucking icon of the current moment is. And, you're saying, how could that be? How can it, that's a picture of Mary, in the checkers. But that's going to happen. Just out of that simple mechanism can create a complex thing, just like little on and off pixels can do it. Light on, light off. And I can make images just by having on, off. I mean, it's a fact that something that binary can create something incredibly complex that appears apparently very complex in the sense that there's pattern in the pattern in the pattern in the pattern. It's a bunch of patterns, and then those patterns are making a pattern, and then that pattern makes a pattern. You could just go deeper and deeper, but elementally, it's just a checkerboard. It's just pixels. That's it. Alright. So, the universe is pixelated. It's, we're certain proof of that, but it's just, anyway. There's always the right analogy, and maybe that's not. Maybe I had to use little yellow ducks as the analogy or something. So you always need to try to find the more perfect metaphor or analogy to describe something so people get it. But I mean, so I'm just saying that's the evil of Richard Feynman, is that he's able to imagine, okay, maybe it is that simple, but he just doesn't want it to. Because that's not any fun. And as he said, mundane. It's too mundane. Mundane and boring, that we're just the byproduct of a bunch of crude mechanisms, and that you know, what we're doing here is just tying knots and then untying the knots we tie. We're not doing anything else. So anyway, till next time.